because
wondering like
Dr.
why
Amru
it is made
is
different.
Usha. That's right.
One second, ma'am. I'll just invite my professor,
No
Dr.
problem.
Zenja,
No
and
problem.
I think we'll start the program, ma'am. We are on time, ma'am.
Ayo, what happened?
Nothing happened.
Okay, please take some water.
I make you fully.
Okay. Dr. Zenita is set to join. Kamlaveni.
Sure. Yes. So, ma'am, Manimegle, ma'am.
I am here.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, Zenita, ma'am will join us shortly,
Okay.
so we'll start the
Okay.
program.
We can start. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, good morning to all my dear participants, and a warm good morning to the respected resource person and the conveners and Murugeshwari ma'am, the organizing secretary. So, indeed, it's our pleasure to have you, ma'am. Now, I welcome Dr. Manimegle ma'am to introduce the resource person and also talk about our session ahead. Welcome,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kamalaveni, for all the support in conducting this program. It is really a tedious task to coordinate with everything, and you are doing that task, and I congratulate and also appreciate for all the support. And I'm happy that we are on the second day of this 1 week program on gender sensitization. It is actually broadly titled as, and then you are going to talk on the gender bias, gender stereotyping, and gender equality, and what is the global scenario. And in that context, it is very important to have a discussion or interaction on the kind of coping mechanisms that the entire community has to take, and particularly women and children. And that is the topic on which today's resource person, Dr. Rajeshwari Srinivasan, will be talking on the coping mechanism for women and children in the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm very happy to introduce, welcome her for this program and for her ready acceptance also. When I contacted, she immediately accepted, and despite her schedule, of course, you would understand what is a kind of a busy person she is, and she also have immediately after this, she will have an interaction there in Singapore, and she could make this time available for us. And I also tell to the participants that we are going to have one more session today in the noon. Please get reminded for that. And so Dr. Rajesh Srinivasan is basically from English background, both MA, MPhil and PhD in TESOL. She did this in UK, and her thesis was on Afro-American feminist theatre. So it is, of course, this is an important area in which we have to. Yesterday also we had this discussion inviting Mangai, she must be familiar with, there in the 1 month gender sensitization program. So how theatre and how it is also now in the contemporary context changing, and are we feminists are supposed to change to the perspective, to the kind of technology that we have been into, like the social media, where in the COVID lockdown hours, it is very much possible to disseminate through theatre, through this social media. And she has got more than 30 years, 33 years of teaching and lecturing experience there in Singapore, and nearly 45 years of debate speaker. So she is Dr. Rajesh Srinivasan is known for this debate speaker there in Singapore, very popular person, and she engages herself with multiple section of the population. It's not only the students, the children, the other, and particularly taking forward and keeping the Tamil language, the linguistics there in Singapore. Recently, we have heard that the Tamil, how Tamil has been language there in Malaysia. Just yesterday, I mean, today we have got that Tirukural is going to be be added in the syllabus of Malaysian syllabus. In fact, we are giving up here in the central board education. The Tirukural is being taken out, and what is happening in Malaysia. So thanks to those diaspora who could help in maintaining our protecting our language, Tamil. And so as a debate speaker for 45 years or so, she has been engaged in at least around, she did completed around 450 Tamil debates, and she's also a mono actor. I only wish that she will perform at least for 5 minutes or so. One of the theatre, whatever she did here also. Yesterday we had witnessed that where Revati, a trans person, was performing, but it was a video. But I'm afraid whether it is possible for Dr. Rajeshwari to play that. And she's a motivational speaker, very much engaging herself to the children, the students, and motivate them in everything, and effectively multilingual. And she's an basically associate lecturer in Singapore, court interpreter, debate and mono-acting trainer for students. That is a very blessing that we could get from Dr. Rajeshwari. And she's also effectively a bilingual upcoming writer and a poet, a translator, and won many accolades in all these fields. We'll be happy to listen to you at least one of the poems where it will be both in English and Tamil, so that here the audience are drawn from across the country, and they'll be able to understand that also. So this is the background in which we have our resource person today, and she'll definitely be engaging us towards the coping mechanism for women and children, and in fact she is doing that there in Singapore. And so when we asked for this, immediately she agreed, because she very much engages herself to the coping mechanism. Even when I was calling, she was just out of that particular meeting, and therefore she'll definitely be an inspiring speaker today for us. And it is not just a speaker today, she is also going to be a motivator for us, a role model for us. So on behalf of all the participants here, thanks to Dr. Kamalaveni again, and the collaboration of Bharatiya and Bharatidasan, because we could get around 250 participants join, even it may go up, and sometimes it won't cross 150 or 200. Today it has crossed 250, and apart from this we also have there in the YouTube, so people who are not here will also be there on the YouTube. So on behalf of the participants and the organizing departments, I welcome Dr. Rajeshwari Srinivasan for this interaction, 1 week short-term program, and I also thank for accepting the invitation. And I'd like to I'd like to welcome Dr. Zenita, who will shortly be joining, the head of the Department of Women's Studies, Bhartiyar University, and my own colleagues, Dr. Murugeshwari, Professor, Department of Women's Studies, Bharatidasan University, who is also the a person who conceptualized along with Dr. Kamalaveni, and I welcome Dr. Kamalaveni for all the support and also coordinating the program, and I also welcome Dr. Shubha, Dr. Mangai, Dr. Kausalya, and other colleagues there, and also Dr. Shamim Banu and Jaiti from our department, and all the participants, both faculty members, the students, the research scholars, the development organizations, etc., for joining this program, and you would definitely be cherishing the kind of the delivery which we are going to have for the whole week together. So once again, I welcome Dr. Rajeshwari, and now over to Kamalaveni.
Ma'am, thank you for the wonderful introducing of resource person. Now the podium is open to you, Raji ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kamalaveni. Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
okay.
ma'am, it's clear.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Kamalaveni. Thank you, Dr. Manimekalai, for having invited me for this forum. I'm very happy to be here today with you all for this webinar. When Dr. Manimekalai suggested that it's about the coping mechanism for women, I was quite impressed, and I was quite happy too, because I just wanted to include the students along with her, the title suggested by her, because I'm personally passionate about doing anything for the students, wherever they be, whether in Asia or whether in any other part of the world also. That's one of my pet subjects. And despite being a university lecturer, I do take pleasure in telemaking myself to the various needs of students from kindergarten to junior college, university, and so on and so forth. So I really thank each one of you for having come here today to provide me this opportunity to listen to this topic as well. Today's topic is coping mechanism for women and students during the pandemic. Association of Women for Action and Research, AWARE Singapore, has clearly classified how the COVID-19 pandemic affects the disadvantaged, vulnerable women in Singapore. Singapore, as you may know, is a multiracial, multi-religious, multicultural society. Why do I keep insisting on the multiracial, multi-religious, and multicultural society? You will know very clearly, in a even otherwise a homogeneous society, women do face various kinds of problems during this pandemic. And if such is the case, imagine Singapore, which is like US, a melting pot of various cultures and a melting pot of various races and various languages as well. Within this society, we have more families bound by interracial and international marriages too, making the problem more complicated. Within such a society, the issues faced by women during this pandemic have an extra edge as opposed to their counterparts elsewhere in the world. The clear classification of women who are affected. Give me a second. I'll see whether you are able to see this. Are you able to see my screen?
No, it hasn't
No,
come.
ma'am.
You have to present. Yeah.
I did it. Give me a
Yes.
second. Right. Okay. I present it on a window. You can see now?
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no, no, no. It has
Thank you.
just
Now
yeah,
it has come.
You
Yes,
can?
yes.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks. So, what I was about to talk about was the clear classification of women who are affected by the pandemic at various levels in Singapore is shown on the screen here. Single mothers, foreign domestic workers, foreign spouses, family violence victims, workplace harassment victims. These are the people who form the sizable portion of Singapore's women community who face the pandemic issues more strongly than the other parts of the world. Single income families run by single mothers are one of the most affected during the pandemic. Within them, there are different kinds of single mothers, including those who are local women, who are married to foreign spouses. They were actually married to foreign spouses who are very well employed previously. Then there are other kinds of single mothers who themselves hail from broken families and who had become teenage single mothers earlier. Single mothers who were homemakers once and whose ex spouses have gone in search of other women are left without any financial support. The low income women are highly affected as several of them have lost their jobs that involve house visits, social contact with more people, etc. On top of this, they have to mind their children alone with no support, as many childcare centers have issued stringent guidelines to keep the children, and when kids have their usual bouts of cold, cough, or fever, whatever, periodic fever, flu, etc. Now these children have to be kept at home with their single mother, who also they have to struggle to provide food for their child without any source of income. Just imagine their condition. The single mothers, if they are working, they have a little bit of income, but they cannot do online work. The single mothers work mostly involves going in person and doing work, and on top of it they have to give up that work, and then they have to take care of their children because the child care centers are unable to accept the kids during these pandemic conditions. Support, housing and enablement project shelter provided by Aware Singapore has been very supportive to these single mothers. Foreign domestic workers, on the other hand, they face a unique problem here of not able to use their annual leave to visit their home countries as there are no flights. The foreign domestic workers working in Singapore, they are actually live-in workers. They live in with their employers in their employer's home. Employers provide them with food, shelter, medical benefits whatsoever. But now the problem for these foreign domestic workers is they are in real difficulty now. Singapore mainly sources its foreign domestic workers from Philippines, Indonesia, India, and Myanmar. These workers hailing from these countries, they were actually due for their hard earned vacation now. They are unable to go due to this pandemic because no flights. They are unable to use their vacation also. Even if they leave Singapore, even if they get emergency flights and land in their home countries, they're supposed to do a kind of a quarantine there for 14 days. After that, they have at the most time of 1 or 2 days to visit their family. And if ever a flight flies back to Singapore, they have to serve again another 14 days of quarantine in Singapore. So, which employer is willing to let go the domestic worker with a paid leave for 1 month like this? So, this is a problem. On top of it, if they go, their renewal of passes is not assured by the Singapore government. So, this is another issue they are facing. To make matters worse, these foreign domestic workers are, they actually generally get a once a week vacation, like something like a once a week day or a Saturday or something like that. They are unable to use that now because of government restrictions, as there are movement and congregational restrictions to protect them from the infection of COVID-19. They have been discouraged from meeting in groups. Then, if they go out, whom will they meet? All their friends are kept under lock and key because they have to be saved as well. Being cooped up in their employer's home all the times is an uphill task for these domestic workers. Under normal circumstances, the children would be in school and their parents would be in their respective workplaces without breathing down the necks of their foreign domestic workers, thereby leaving the house for these workers. The workers, of course, they have some private space even though they are working. Now everything is robbed off. They have been denied of all these things now. The domestic workers under normal circumstances would be doing their household chores, cooking, and minding the children who come back from school with a practiced ease, as they had the house to themselves for a sizable amount of time. After all, they
Excuse me,
also need.
ma'am.
Yes?
Ma'am, the participants are asking for full screen because it is very small. I think people are viewing the YouTube also,
Oh, okay. Okay.
so they wanted the full screen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
So the
ma'am.
foreign domestic workers, as I have just pointed out, they have this unique problem of tackling with all these things. The removal of the windows of respite to these foreign domestic workers might have long term psychological repercussions on them, affecting their relationship with the employer and their family. This actually changes the very mechanics under which they are working. It creates them real stress. Since 2016, an average of 2,700 foreign domestic workers are recruited per year through the Advanced Placement Scheme to help specifically with child care and elder care. These foreign domestic workers looking after the elderly or immunodeficient children may also be at increased risk of contracting the disease from close contact recipients. Foreign domestic workers find it increasingly difficult to wear the face mask and go out and do the supermarket chores and all these things. The onus of maintaining cleanliness and hygiene of their entire employer's family is becoming a day to day challenge for these domestic workers. Removal of the windows of respite to these foreign domestic workers might have long term psychological repercussions on them, affecting their relationship with their employer and their family. These workers also need support and counseling by their employers to disperse their fear for the safety of the workers' own families back home. As long as these workers are not abused physically at their employer's place, they are safe enough under the new normal circumstances. Many employers have also reportedly developed a never before newfound sense of empathy towards these living foreign domestic workers due to their current shared woes. They do take enough care of the workers to ensure that they are given protective shields, hand sanitizers, and gloves, but their emotional needs are still to be addressed at large. So, with this, I move on to the foreign spouses. And as far as this foreign spouses is concerned, I'm not presenting it through the PowerPoint slide. It's going to be more of through the lecture. Foreign spouses of Singapore citizens and PRs will be affected tremendously during this pandemic due to separation from their family and children in Singapore. New travel restrictions and lack of flights have created a serious emotional crisis for these spouses who are usually on a long term visit pass known as LTVP. Some of these children risk separation from their non resident parents who are now barred from re entering the country unless they are LTVP holders or work pass holders, providing essential services such as health care and transport. Or they are unable to enter back Singapore, and their children are trapped in Singapore without their moms, which is a very serious condition. It's a very serious situation. Members of transnational families might be physically separated from each other during a pandemic due to the travel restrictions imposed to contain the spread of the virus. The validity of LTVP varies in length, and there's no guarantee of successful renewal. This is the sad plight. Just imagine the lady has just gone on to visit her family back, say in China, India, or elsewhere, wherever. And once they reach there, this lockdown comes and the pandemic starts, and they are told they cannot enter back into Singapore. Whereas the children were told the moms will come back in a week's time. You understand the situation, right? So, this is the kind of pathetic condition that the women and children find themselves in during this condition. Foreign spouses who are LTVP holders will actually, like citizens and permanent residents, benefit from the government subsidized rates when they receive treatment for coronavirus in public hospitals. No doubt about it. Even testing fees are waived for these people in Singapore. So government does support them. But what happens is government is unable to do anything in the immigration front simply because they really want to protect the rest of the citizens as well as they want to protect these people. See, those on short-term visit passes, they need to pay full cost of the treatment from 7th March 2020 in Singapore, which is really a whooping cost. It's not an easy job to maintain that cost in Singapore without any insurance and without a governmental support or any kind of subsidy here. This is the critical situation they find themselves in. The foreign spouses are unable to move their young children to their country of origin either due to the current situation. It is an unimaginable situation. If you think you are already experiencing the impact of pandemic, just think about these people who have really no way to do anything else other than just waiting. Even if rare emergency flights are arranged by the respective countries, the threat of facing a quarantine upon arrival poses extra challenges for them. Whether they go to their home countries or if they want to come back to Singapore, on both ends they experience this quarantine, which does not leave them with any choice other than staying put wherever they are. If Singapore citizens choose to travel by any available flights, they face the mandatory quarantine upon arrival in Singapore. On top of this, if they contract COVID-19, they may have to bear the full charges for medical help. Yes, you heard it right. I'm talking about Singapore citizens. They will be asked to bear the full cost without subsidy upon arrival back in Singapore because they chose to travel against the advice from the government not to travel. Because it has been told to them very clearly, if you choose to travel during this pandemic and if you contract COVID-19, then you may have to face the consequences as well. This may sound pretty rude, sound pretty harsh, but we have no other choice except restricting this movement simply because that is how Singapore has brought down its COVID affected victims' numbers by leaps and bounds. Now it's almost under control, but still we do experience this. Foreign spouses on LTVP can continue to work in Singapore, no doubt about it. While national data on the number of LTVP holders by job industry is not publicly available, based on existing research and based on aware's research, many foreign wives on LTVP tend to be doing frontline jobs like food and beverages, retail, home care, receptionist, and so on and so forth. Now, this work puts them on a higher risk of infection given that they have close interaction with customers and clients. And unfortunately, there's another downside to the scenario. During this pandemic, as most of the establishments were closed down for a prolonged period, many of these women have lost their jobs. They have lost their jobs. That's it. It's not coming back to them in the near future. They are facing financial crisis in their already low income earning families. In some extreme cases, this has created enough cause for future divorces. Not that there was no reason for divorce other than financial causes, but these are current excuses enough to trigger more number of divorces, leaving more number of children caught up between the world of the dad and the world of the mom. They do not know what's happening around them. Whatever be their age, they do not know what's happening around them. They're already shocked because everything dear to them is robbed away. And now, on top of it, they have to put up with this also. I'm not trying to sensationalize the issue, but I'm trying to show you the cross section of society about whom we have not forgotten, but we do not know what to do actually. Whatever we do, it will be of some help to them, but it cannot entirely, totally eradicate their problems. That is the issue. Another scenario which we see here is the family violence victims. You see, I have already spoken about other kinds of women who face problems. Three kinds of women we saw so far: single mothers, then we talked about foreign domestic workers, then we talked about foreign wives who have married locals, and now the fourth category, family violence victims. For family violence victims, probably you have seen in India also the same, but due to the cultural background, the women have been told to just shut up and mind their own business, isn't it? This is quite sad. Since all the families are cooped up in limited spaces, lack of personal space is a great challenge to the entire family. We do agree. Women are especially affected as a working women who spent a sizable time away from their houses, return to their houses totally recharged, now have to struggle between their online work as well as their domestic duties. Again, I understand that some of you might be wondering, at least the men folk might be wondering, how come women return from their workplaces totally recharged and enter into their homes? Isn't it? Doesn't it sound like a kind of a parody? It sounds like a kind of a paradox as well. Yes, that's the truth sometimes. Sometimes the fiber that holds the families is both the partners going away for work and meeting each other for restricted hours. It sounds like a joke, but that is how it has been functioning in many countries for quite some time. Women are especially affected because, you see, even in Singapore, people do live with their extended families as joint families many a time. This is mainly because of some social conveniences as well. They do this to meet their childcare needs, and they also want to give proper care for their parents. Women in these houses are also worst hit during this pandemic. You see, the generation of women, which is called the the sandwich generation. Maybe many of you are in the sandwich generation, like they are caught up with the demanding needs of their own senior generation of people at home and their junior generation of children at home. And these women who are working, who are also shouldering the domestic responsibilities on top of it, they are facing this problem. You see, the problem is there's an automatic demand for more cooking, more food, making of more delicacies as opposed to their regular weekday food, as there's a sense of vacation among certain members of its families, isn't it? You see, many families have this issue. They do think that since the women are readily available at home, why can't they do this? Why can't they cook this? Why can't they take care of us with the extra care? But actually, the so called person who is staying at home is actually working. You'll not be able to demand that extra muruku or that extra apple pie or that extra cake from that woman if she had been physically sitting in her office during the daytime. Just because she is sitting in her home office during the daytime, all these demands are on her, and she is forced to grab every toilet break or a coffee break to just switch on her oven and then put something in to prepare for her entire family so that the rest of the family will not bug her during her working hours. Another scenario is also affected